Beach Town Council for discussion of budget items and a review of the planning portion of the budget. The first thing on the agenda is the financial update from the finance director. And what did I do with my copy? Is this my copy?
Rich probably took it like John's pen.
That's my original share, Bob.
No, I've got it, I've got it, I've got it.
Bob, get organized.
Eh,
Okay, you have before you a multi-page document. First page is what you normally get at the Monday night council meeting, just a thank you. Just the latest financial statements. So January financials are here with the usual information. So that will just give you an up-to-date snapshot. When we do the budget, the department heads will have the same information in detail, and they will develop their budgets based on what is actually has happened up through the end of January, and then we'll project February through June, what's going to happen the rest of the fiscal year. So this is our starting place, page 1. Page 2 and 3 is an updated chart that you have seen before when we talked about the fund balance activity. It's the green page, and I've added some blue information in blue that you hadn't seen in this format before. I've restated the green information because it seemed to be a workable way to understand the activity in the fund balances of all of our different funds. General fund, Powell bills, sunset at sunset, accommodations tax, beach nourishment, future development, future street paving, and town park, and dredging, and Main Street sidewalk. So everything in green basically is what we think is going to happen based on all the budgeting activity for this year that's already taken place. So that would be the original budget plus whatever budget amendments you've approved so far. And again, this is all as of January 31st. So that information you had seen before, it hasn't really changed. There's nothing really that has caused the original assumptions to vary at all. What's new is I'm giving you in the blue, just so you have it in conjunction with the fund balance activity, your revenue to date, your expenditures to date in each of the funds, plus the cash that we have on hand. And the reason I think it's important for you to have all this in a snapshot is it kind of is the best evidence that to show you that the cash balance is really not the fund balance. They work in tandem, but they're not the same thing. Your fund balance is a function of budgeting, which is an estimate. At the end of the year, of course, when we have the audit, we're not estimating anymore, but at this point, until the end of the year, what we think is going to happen to the fund balance and the only thing you really have to base your plans on, any future plans, is what's happening in the green. What's happening in the blue is what we've actually received and spent, and the resulting cash balance. If you go back to the first sheet, when I give you this every month, your financial report for the last reconciled month, which in this case was January, you've got your budget figures and you've got your actual figures. What we are budgeting, you can tell already if you look at something, well here, property taxes is probably the most graphic example. You all budgeted 2.4 million, property taxes is right here, halfway down the page. For the general fund, you budgeted 2.4 million to be received in property taxes. And already by January, which is only 7 months into the year, we've received 2.3 million. we only have 3% remaining to collect before we hit the budget number. Now, we know, because of the way property taxes work, this actually happens year after year after year, because taxes are billed in September and they become late in January. So the lion's share of all the property taxes we're going to receive, we will have received by January. But this is kind of the most graphic evidence of how that skews. You can't assume that you're going to receive 1/12 of your revenue each month. Or you can't assume that you're going to, and I'll go into a little bit of detail about the expenditures, you cannot assume that you're going to spend 1/12 of your budget for expenditures every month. One of the anomalies about the expenditures is the lion's share of everybody's budget the lion's shares of everybody's budgets are their capital expenditures. Those are the biggest ticket items, and every department had capital items. We were in the same place last year with all of our capital needs. Those cost the most money, and traditionally they get bought before the end of December. So you're going to show your expenditures are heavily weighted in the opposite direction of we've spent more than already than we would have if it was even the same amount every month. We've taken more in revenue because property taxes is a big factor. So we've taken more in that line item than we would if we got them evenly 12 times a year, 1/12 every month. But then there are other revenue items, like our intergovernmental revenue works kind of differently from property taxes. By the end of January, we still had about 50% of our intergovernmental revenue waiting to come to us, because when the Department of Revenue sends us money, they're 2 months behind. So what we received in January for our local option sales tax was money that was collected by DOR in November. And so when we get to the end of the year, the audit allows us to book things that happen 60 days after the end of the year. And what we get from the Department of Revenue falls right into that category. We will not get June's local option sales tax until August. So at the end of the year, we're still tracking things for 2 more months. Okay, when you get ready to do the budget, however, we're looking at a total year at one time, and the projections for most of the revenue things depend on not historic, but what the League of Municipalities, the North Carolina League of Municipalities, what they project is going to happen with the intergovernmental revenues in the upcoming year. So there's a lot of moving pieces, and again, you know, it's only a snapshot, but it does give you an idea. I can look at this and tell that we're on track. We're in a good place financially. Things are happening the way they should happen, the way we would expect them to happen. So the green and the blue sheet gives you a snapshot of where we are right this minute, and we can refer back to it, and in any future budget amendments for this year, we can refer to these 2 sheets and know that approximately what you have to work with. Okay, so that's it for the first 3 sheets, and almost there. The last 2 sheets are, again, a guide. What it is a list of buildings, equipment, and vehicles that we consider to be capital assets currently in use. So when you look at these items, which is mostly the goal for today, to think about how you want to proceed, mostly with capital assets, how you want to continue to increase the value of our fiscal outlook by replacing items, capital assets that are in need of replacement, adding new things to expand the level of service to people, improve the level, expand it quantity-wise and quality-wise, make up for having to wait to go forward on something that has been needed for a while. This, we have a bunch of tools here to enable you to make those decisions. Couple of things I want to point out with what you've got in front of you with the capital assets currently in use. You've got a year that these things, that all of these items were purchased in, and the dollar amount connected to each of these is the purchase price. It's not the replacement price, which sometimes can be very different. In most cases, especially for buildings and vehicles and probably mechanical equipment, not necessarily technological equipment, but for the most part, things are going to cost a lot more to replace than they did when we originally bought them. So the acquisition year will give you an idea of, first of all, how old these items are. And second of all, it'll help you put it in perspective that these purchases of capital items take place over a great number of years. Each item has a specific value tied to useful life. Like cars, we know when we buy cars, they're supposed to last for 5 years, give or take. And so what happens is we depreciate them. The reason why we do this is we depreciate them over a certain period. Cars are 5 years, equipment's generally 10 years, buildings are generally 50 years. So there's dollar value attached to all of this when you look at the things that are presented in the audit. They all provide value to the town in terms of our net worth, but the value diminishes over time as the items are fully depreciated. So you keep the value of our capital assets up by replenishing these things when they wear out, when they break down, when they have to be disposed of. So it's a constant cycle. So one of the reasons I'm giving this to you is also one of our goals in the budget process is to come closer to actually having a capital improvement plan. All of these items are things that we use on a regular basis, and all of these things wear out. So what we want to do, in addition to looking at projects, specific projects, we want to pay attention to the vehicles and equipment that we need and that we have to keep replacing. And we can actually project out 5 years, looking at, if you look at this last column, the remaining years of useful life, you will, what this tells you is, just looking at the first item, we currently, the server that everybody runs off now, everybody in this building runs off now, has 2 years of useful life left to it.
Where, excuse me, where does that number come from?
It's a function of years.
No, I understand that, but
right, we bought it in 2015.
But do you use what resource do you have to come up with?
For the useful
The
life,
useful
it's
life.
the auditing standards
Okay.
for equipment. In this case, computer equipment is 5 years.
Okay.
So we bought it in 2015. We've had it for, now it's 2018. And so we've got 2 more years. We're going to have to look at replacing it in 2 years, essentially. We can get, hopefully, 2 more years out of it and nothing
So
happens.
zeros mean they need to be replaced now.
Correct, yes. And if you look at each department, a half to a third of everybody's equipment is getting close to needing replacement. So some stuff is redundant. Part of the management of the whole budget process is making choices. This is really important and we can't do without it. Actually, here's an example, and that it works the other way too. The fire department has a heavy-duty washer that is well past its useful life for this purpose, but it has been very well maintained, and it's not on the list. There are a lot of things on this list that have a useful life of 0 that are not on that list. So these are the highest priority items that department heads have identified, and this will kind of give you a frame of reference.
One of the things that I had talked with you about, and I talked with Susan about, is us actually adopting a capital improvement plan. Now, we don't need to do that to do what we're going to do here today.
No.
But as part of the budget process, I'd like to end up eventually adopting a capital improvement plan.
Right, and we can easily do that.
And everybody understand what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
The only question I have is one for me to understand. On the page that was provided on the agenda, which you covered these issues on department and special capital projects,
Actually, this is just an
I
update.
just want to have an understanding. The sidewalks were already budgeted for and allocated for, is that correct?
I'm sorry, the sidewalks?
The Main Street sidewalks?
Yes.
That's already been placed aside and allocated?
Correct.
North Cobia Street, that's being paid for by the citizens. The stormwater project has yet to be funded, is that correct?
Correct.
And the Living Shoreline project, although we have a grant of $35,000, we don't know what the cost of that will be. So
We have,
therefore,
it was budgeted.
Has that been already allocated for?
It has. Well, it's part of the general fund budget. It's in the general fund. It's not its own separate project, but it is budgeted, yes.
It has already been allocated for?
Correct.
So in other words, what is the total cost for that project?
We budgeted 95, and we have a grant for 34 of it.
I think 30 or 35, something. So in essence, the net cost will be, let's say, 65,000 or
61.
60,000, and that has already been allocated.
That's correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So that's kind of it, just an update, give you some tools to work with.
Thank you.
All set?
Anybody else have questions, Bonnie? Okay, thanks, Bonnie.
I don't know what Kevin's got all the zeros.
All right, I was going to give a existing projects update. However, the mayor already stole my thunder and read my press release from last week. I do have 2 minor updates, though. On February 26th, which is next Monday, they will begin the stormwater repairs in front of the banks here. And on March 5th, they will begin the Business 179 work. I think we had put mid-March, but it'll begin on March 5th. And we'll send out a Facebook and an e-alert to that effect. So let's,
Susan, I have a question on the sidewalks. Have letters went out to the homeowners?
yes, they have.
It has.
Yes,
You mean 'cause
two
of
weeks
that?
ago. Yes, a few people, in fact, a gentleman by the name of Mr. Shipley stopped by yesterday. He just wanted to be clear he understood where his property started and began and ended. And also Dustin has gone out and met with several people on Main Street, about 5, 4?
Generally, it's been positive.
Yes.
Can you also supply me with that letter? Because some people have asked me, and I didn't see it.
I think it's on the website.
Is it on the website?
What was, you gave the date of the 26th. What was the 26th?
Stormwater.
Over by the banks.
Oh, Banks, oh, okay.
Is that part of our program or part of the NCDOT?
It's
There's stuff in front of
It's
the banks.
part of the project. It is state and Sea Trail responsibility. They put it all together in a package to reduce the cost of mobilization and design.
But isn't that the same one they've been fixing for the last 2 years?
Yes. They weren't fixing it, they were just filling a hole with dirt.
The issue was, that's under Sea Trail Corporation stormwater permit.
Over here.
Well,
Over,
it was part of that, yeah, I mean, it's located over there, but it was part of the stormwater permit that it included these 500 and some units this side of Sunset Boulevard. And of course, Sea Trail Corporation doesn't exist anymore. And those permits some of those permits were assigned to Sunrise Corp. When Mr. Pan bought Sea Trail. That was not. So it's really, it was kind of in limbo. And, 'cause I had discussions with the people in the banks. They said, are we gonna have to put up with these cones forever? And, Susan was able, in the discussions with DOT, to get them to assume the responsibility for correcting that, even though it really should have been the permit holder. But there's no permit holder right now.
So does that mean DOT pays for it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Was that your original question? I
Yeah,
apologize,
that's
I
what
missed it then.
That's what I wanted to know.
I can be dense at times. All right, so what happened, was it last week or 2 weeks ago? Department heads all met together to discuss their needs for the next fiscal year. Actually, you know, we looked at what we've accomplished this year, and we also looked at what needs we have, and we also looked at any needs that we could actually eliminate or combine with other departments so we don't have, duplicate items on this list. Now again, these numbers are projected, what we believe to be. They're not related to any quotes. It's what we think the price will be, and of course we will formalize those more as this budget process goes on. So what I...
Fiscal year 18, is that correct?
This is for this it's 19, this next fiscal year. The budget session, that's 19, fiscal year 19. I'll just say 18, 19.
I used the wrong year.
That's all right. And so what I'd like to do is to go through them. The reason the department heads are here is not to answer your questions, but to hear your questions. So when we come back in a more formal budget process, they have the answers to your questions and can make them available to you. All right? So we'll just begin with the backhoe trailer. This is a trailer that hauls our backhoe. It is very old, and the replacement costs, we estimate to be about $8,400. We're also replacing a truck. Now you can interrupt and ask a question at any time. Amber is going to be writing down the questions for the departments so that we don't miss anything.
Amber, can the backhoe be fixed, or does it need replacement?
Okay. The truck, that's Public Works truck. It is a truck that is in disrepair. It's one of the last trucks in this department that needs to be replaced.
What kind of truck
No.
is it?
Just write that down.
Is it a pickup truck, or?
Yeah, it's a pickup truck. Exmark lawnmower for $8,000. We still mow the right-of-ways and other areas. Truck, this is inspections and planning. It would replace the Ford 2007. Thank you. See, you don't follow directions very well. Kidding. Oh, come
You
on.
asked the question.
It's a long day.
When you go
yes.
over these different vehicles,
Yes.
and are they all listed here as zeros? They're well past, well,
So far, the ones she has.
Yes.
Now, question, when you say $30,000, that doesn't include what we can...
Use the mic, please.
Does that include what we're going to resell these trucks for?
No, we do not include that. This is a purchase price. We, of course, if it doesn't pose any liability to surplus or sell, we, of course, will do so, and those revenues would be placed in the general fund. Okay, I got a nod on that. Radios. This is the second year of a 4-year replacement program for the fire department. It's for $57,000. There's a commercial dryer, and
Can you go back to the radios for a second? We started that 4-year plan?
2 years ago.
Okay.
This is, 1 year ago. 1 year ago, this is the second year.
coming, okay.
Yes.
Would this complete replacement? Go ahead, Rich.
Susan, explain it.
It is, we did a 4-year plan of radio replacement. Last year was the first installation of replacement. There's 4 years planned to replace all the radios. It's because of the price tag that we thought we could phase it over 4 years.
So that $57,000 is this year's per portion.
Yes. Commercial dryer. The reason it's $27,000 is that this is a commercial dryer that will help dry the turnouts. And it has the turnout,
The equipment.
suspenders and pants. And we can't mix it with anything else. If it's going to be for turnouts, it has to be turnouts because of the hazardous materials that become part of the suits during a fire or any other type of hazmat mitigation. So it has to be separate from our regular washer and dryer. Okay. 2 UTVs, one for the police and one for the fire department. These are fully equipped with lights and sirens and everything they need to be a public safety response item.
Now, why would the police need it? For the beach?
Yes. And the fact that there are some instances where it might be better for them to respond in a UTV. I'm just looking for a nod.
Like an angel trace
Okay.
where they can't get back in their car, they use that.
Something like that. Radar sign. As you know, during some of our special events or even during the evacuation, we use those large electronic C-dot boards. We thought it would be in our best interest to purchase one, and these are for $15,400. We've been talking about it. It's both a radar and a sign. And it's something that, like, if we have a lot of complaints in the neighborhood for speeding, we could put that sign up for for a period of 30 days or so. And then it can see that if they are speeding or not, or we could put a sign, road closed due to utility improvements or something like that.
We used that, the road committee from C-Trail used the county, got the cooperation of the county to use theirs to try and slow down traffic on Clubhouse for about a month, and it sat out there and it says, speed limit X, your speed is, but it's also for informational purposes.
Yes.
Can I ask Chief one question? Can you issue a ticket off of that? No.
No.
Does it, does,
I'm sorry, what some of them can do is track the speed, and then we can download that into a spreadsheet, so it gives us the best idea of when the majority of violations are.
So you could tell my wife she's been speeding 4 times down the causeway? Okay.
And in addition to the items that we purchased last year, what are those things called? Say it again? Traffic counters, which help with speed and number of cars. A combination of that sign and the traffic counters will give us a lot of information to localize either enforcement or actually share that. A lot of people think they're driving 50 miles an hour, but they're really driving 20. So there's a misperception of speed on the road. 5 squad cars. We're not going to go into great detail today about that. We will bring that back. Chief Claymore has a presentation he'd like to bring to the council, forward to the council. Do you have any questions about that outside of the presentation?
Is there 5 zeros on your spreadsheet, Bonnie? Requesting 5 new cars? So that's counting 4.
5 squad cars.
What Susan just referred to as Chief's
Presentation.
Okay.
Yes. Radar? Oh my, I've been hanging around you too long. Radar dual antenna. This is for the replacement with the cars. I can let him go into that in great detail when he talks about the cars. Camera police, that's a single camera. HR software, that is to, would you call it sync up with our financial software? The payroll. Okay.
She's writing it down.
She's writing it down. That's good.
That's a situation, and Alex had to, 2 years ago, I had to replace my computer, and I needed, if you've ever tried to buy new Microsoft software anymore, the way that most people go is you buy Microsoft 365. Well, you don't really buy the software. You rent it for a year, and then you renew it after that year's up, because there's been so many changes in it, and it's the same kind of concept.
Annual road resurfacing, that's using our Powell bill. We don't have a number yet. We probably will have one when we come back.
Right, but that's not coming out of the operating fund. It's gonna come out of the power.
It depends on what the number is. When we, maybe what I should tell you is that every year, every spring, Dustin drives the roads and makes a determination what the needs are. At this point in time, we have a road called Crooked Gully, which has severe damage in many places, which may bring this cost higher. And if you have any questions about just the severity of damage,
There's a net somewhere.
there is, and we'll bring that back. We just don't know what it is yet.
So Susan, real quick, the issues on Georgetown Road, that's county?
That's a
State?
state road, and that is scheduled for resurfacing this fall. All right?
Susan,
Yes, sir.
the Crooked Gully, is that all tied in with the stormwater?
I can't say that for sure. I would say it would be more freeze and thaw and active nature on this part.
Charlie, look, I know where it is, and I've seen it and whatnot, and it's the inadequate design of the road, construction of the road that the town didn't do, with the insufficient sub-base and final coat, where in January, the moisture got down and then it froze and it heaves the road. And it's because it was an inadequate design or construction when it was constructed.
Okay.
So I don't have a causal effect, but I would guess it would be the freeze and thaw more than stormwater. Beach accesses, as you know, every year we try to replace or repair beach accesses. And in the last 4 years, we have done 15, 16, 15. And this is generally what we budget. Now, we can talk if you want to expedite some replacement of different accesses, you know, increase the number to expedite the repair process like we did for the 10 2 years ago. What we can do, Dustin, we can look at some accesses that you might want to add in addition to the normal, and we'll bring that back to you for consideration.
And are we going to try to ramp where we can ramp?
We always do.
Okay.
And we just have a challenge with CAMA and clearance of the dunes is, and actually the width of our easements are challenging
They did a great
too.
job on 40th Street.
Good. We'll let the guys know. Thank you. Town hall carpet. I don't have a price yet. Is that correct?
We work on the project.
Right. This carpet is 10 years old. Pardon me? 12 years old. And what we found with the mold issues, when we looked under the carpet, the base is gone. And it's time to replace the carpet. Town hall kitchen, if you've ever been in there, I know you have, the sink isn't functioning, there's not enough space, it's a poorly designed kitchen. I don't have a number for that either. We haven't looked seriously at it yet. But at the very least, the sink and a small dishwasher,
So you're not talking a full renovation,
No, no,
just a certain,
no,
that needed repaired.
needed repairs. The door's fallen off the cabinet. It just needs some love, definitely. Now, I think I'm gonna skip potential and go to the stormwater program.
Yeah, stick to 19 for now. 19.
Oh, that's funny. How do you know? We're not there yet. So as you know, we did hire Mr. Baker as our stormwater manager. He's been reviewing the plan and the CIP. And what we didn't do last year is we didn't budget either for the equipment, the bodies. We didn't do anything except pay for him to come on board. So in reviewing that, and this is what we have, is that the mini street sweeper is the most important capital item we need to purchase. We cannot install the sidewalk, the pervious sidewalk, without this. The maintenance of that sidewalk is going to be placed in the permit. Because it's a pervious sidewalk, it has to be maintained so that it acts as an infiltration sidewalk. Does that make sense?
I can hear you.
Oh, good. The annual jetting, vacuuming, and televise. If you recall from the stormwater plan, there was a recommendation to buy a vac truck and a televising equipment. That's close to $500,000. My thought is that this first year, when we're trying to get this program started, we'll outsource it, and that's the estimated cost for that. And that,
Susan, just
yes.
for a second. intended for?
In perpetuity. Stormwater is like streets. Stormwater is something that has not been properly maintained since the inception of this community. It is no different than our streets and sidewalks. It is something that we need to maintain in perpetuity on an annual basis to maintain water quality.
No, I understand that, but
Okay.
we're not expected to complete this, I believe. What I recall was that this was a 10-year plan,
Yes, and this is the first year only.
and this is the first part of that 10-year
This,
plan.
yeah, this is the first year.
Did we
The
actually
first 2
decide
years.
5 years or 10 years?
Pardon me?
Did we actually decide 5 years or 10 years?
What we did was we looked at, is that me or you?
Was that me or you?
I don't know. What we did, we looked at the table and we picked the 3 highest priority items, whether it was we wanted to focus on that first this year. We'd like to come back next year and say, okay, we figured this out. We have the equipment we need, we have a more formal plan, and we will make a recommendation to you whether you want to do this for 5 or 10 years. But we need to get started.
My concept was last year, we had an idea, and we had a concept of what was necessary. What we needed to is to hire the stormwater manager, so we would have his input into somebody who knew what they were talking about.
Yes.
Really, they could come up, and these are a lot firmer figures than what we were talking about last year.
Firmer figures and a firmer plan.
My point
Okay.
was that at this time, we have not yet decided whether we'll do it over 5 years or over 10 years.
That is correct. We'd like to come back after we get this started next year.
So what
Susan?
you're saying simply is that these would be the
Highest-
startup cost
This
for
is
for
the,
fiscal year 19 for the stormwater management, which include items 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5.
it's all of this. This is the stormwater program for the first year.
The first year.
Correct. So the next is the stormwater high priority fixes. Those are the top, the ones that were ranked the highest on that. We put
Right.
them all, we wanted to get those all done the first year, if we can. And the thing that the plan didn't talk about, because I think there was an assumption that we were doing this already, but we are not. We have easements throughout our town for the pipe, for ditches, and we have not been maintaining them. And in fact, a lot of the ditches and swales have been filled in because people want to mow their lawn straight across the swale. We need to start going to each of these easements, mowing, removing trees, removing any of the impediments, making sure it's the proper depth to convey the water to the retention areas, because if we don't, that's when we have that localized flooding.
Susan, is that mainly on the mainland or on the beach?
We're going to start on the mainland. That's where the highest priority items are.
Start at Bob's lawn first.
I'm sorry, what?
Start on Bob's lawn first.
Oh, Bob's.
I'll call the beacon.
Now, as you may recall, we have GIS that has mapped, and we have the televised reporting of the inside, the pipes and everything. The next step is anytime we make a repair, we have a before, we have an after, we have an as-built. We put it into this file so that when we're in the field and we come upon a failure, we can look up and see year of the pipe, who put it in, is it past its useful life or not. It's going to give Rick and the contractors a lot of information in the field.
Susan, when I add up all these numbers in my head for fiscal year 19, it's slightly over $500,000.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Which
Now-
is less than what you had last year in the original concept.
Yes.
Now, have we applied for any grants? I mean, do we know of any grants that the Coastal Federation can assist us with because one of the exercises that I'm thinking of having you do for fiscal year 19 is, let's say the council approves everything you want and what the staff wants. What's the bottom line?
We'll get there. We're not doing that today, though. This, again, is just
Oh, I
a
understand.
brief overview of where staff is right now as far as priorities.
No, I'm just,
Okay.
I understand, my heart's just fluttering.
Well, with the new program, there's
got-
costs associated. We did not put together a stormwater district to fund it. We did not, or any assessments to fund it. So we will, as part of his job description, is to look for grant opportunities.
What do you mean by community outreach?
Well, part of the program, and we had talked about this, was we're going to focus on our area. When I say our, the public areas where the pipe and the
Right,
trenching.
right.
The private areas, the individual homeowners can do things too. It should be a partnership. Because if they have stormwater runoff their lot because they don't have enough pervious area, they're not collecting rain, they don't have any rain gardens, they've increased their impervious area. So we want to educate them, and we will do this with Coastal Federation, about ways for them to regulate or minimize their stormwater runoff.
This is a follow-up of the Coastal Federation presentation from
Yes,
last year, where they
Yes.
came up with, gave us
Yes.
all these ideas of how
yes.
individuals.
And those were
should
the
contribute.
ideas that Dustin and I, we went to Oak Island and observed, and that really started the ball rolling on the community outreach aspect. I don't know if Amber has gotten this direction yet, but we're looking at ways to do a reimbursement program for any investment that local property owners make to decrease their stormwater runoff. I don't know if that's even viable. I did a similar project in Wisconsin. I'm hoping we can do something here.
Susan,
Yes, sir.
this is the minimum we need to start, correct?
Correct. The one area, can't cut this, can't. This, we could probably delay a year because we'll be collecting the data.
Right, right.
That would probably be the only thing
Right.
that we could delay. But we can't even begin this work until we've done that. We can't do this until we've started this. It's all connected. It's all part of a three-part or three-prong program.
We've put off stormwater issues for more than 10 years, so
I would say
I
30.
think, I'm not that old.
Oh, well,
Charlie, we may not be here in 10 years.
based on the pipe I've seen in the ground, I would say 30. So, yes.
Well, it's got to be addressed. That's-
Yes, absolutely. It's a must, in our opinion. Let's go to personnel. Ken will talk about the 6 part-time police officers, primarily seasonal officers for the island during the summer, and to improve the response rates. He'll bring that information back to us. The building inspector, you've probably noticed from your weekly reports that our number of COs and inspections has gone way up, you know, from less than 10 to over 60. Am I overstating that? Okay. So that's something we'd like the council to consider. The special events PIO coordinator. Oh, sorry.
Could you look into that? What's the lead time in doing an inspection?
We'll absolutely look into that for you. So the special events PIR coordinator, that discussion began during the concert series, the farmer's market discussion. I just put a job description together and an estimated range for that person.
Susan, I'm just thinking out loud, and I had this on my little list. The vision I have of this position, if the council approves it, is that somehow it has to be, I mean, you mentioned the farmer's market, which is now done by the private sector. We have Sunset at Sunset, which is done by the town. In the concert series, there's always going to be a big question mark. And I understand, well, I got a notice from Fred that he's looking for money from the businesses. The vision that I have is that if we hire a part-time or full-time special events coordinator, we will profit, hopefully, from the farmer's market, Sunset at Sunset, and possibly even the concert series with donations. I'm just thinking out loud. So that this is basically self-funded by the revenue that is generated from these events. Is that I don't know if the council shares in that vision, but this is a retirement community. This is also a resort community. People like entertainment, mostly people enjoy going out and meeting with people, which is
Right.
good for their psyche and mental health. But my vision is to be net zero. That's my vision. It may not be shared with the council. That's just my
Right.
personal opinion.
Right.
Well, Rich,
Well,
one of the things that I thought about when I began discussing this with Susan is not just, the term event may put a mischaracterization on it. It's more of a, to expand
Yeah,
municipal
no,
opportunities.
exactly.
It's not just
It's not
limited
just
to
what the current is, but
Right.
to expand to other
that
activities.
would benefit residents. whether
Oh,
it's-
absolutely.
whether
No,
it's
no, that's,
a yoga in the park or
no, no,
something
no,
like
no,
that.
no. Yeah, no, I'm assuming that, Bob.
I guess I had not thought of it being self-funding because in order for a position to be self-funding, they have to generate enough revenue through fees to offset it. So this
Yeah,
could be
no,
a-
I know, it's
a-
gotta be, no.
This could be a future discussion because do we want to provide a recreational service at any of the HOAs for yoga or stretching? Charge $25 a head, or do we
Yeah,
want to
no.
provide it for a minimal fee?
Yeah.
Okay, so a
No,
lot
no,
more
it's a whole-
discussion.
Well-
it's a whole-
Okay.
You gave an employee a $10,000 raise to be Susan's assistant, and that was part of what was to be handled. And then it turned out, that employee wasn't doing any of their work.
Don't say that, Charlie.
I believe there's a,
Charlie, I can't hear you.
Well, what,
I believe there's a list available, but, I think this is an important position for the town.
Well,
No, I'm not saying that it isn't or is. I'm just saying that we have to think how we're going to do this so that hopefully maybe it could be net zero. I mean, presently, we don't make any money at Sunset at Sunset. In fact, it cost us a little money.
Didn't cost anything last year.
Yes, it did.
Let's not get there.
Charlie, it's petty, but the salaries and wages are excluded from that expense. So it doesn't make that much money. We're going to have to decide, how do we get more revenue for Sunset at Sunset?
okay.
And that's how we're going to have to think.
So based on
Not
this
necessarily.
So based on this position, we'll bring back the job description. I won't probably have any numbers for you at that time because I don't know what that would be.
No, no.
I've been making up numbers and I don't want to mislead
Susan, what I
you.
would like to say, I don't know if the council will agree, is that you have your wish list. And some of this, I'm sure, will be funded by the reserves, and we're not that far above our 75% policy. What I would like to see is, if this is your wish list, that's fine. I'd like to see a number and how it's going to impact our tax rate and also how it's going to impact our reserves.
Yes, and that will be the next meeting. And I just have to, I'm going to say this publicly, it's not a wish list.
No,
And it's not, if you look at the asset
I used the
list-
wrong word, I'm
Thank
sorry.
you. 'Cause I don't want the
realize words
public-
have meanings. Your needed list.
This is a needs list.
Okay, I'm
And
sorry. Don't
these
shoot
are the
me.
highest priority items that the staff felt they needed to perform their duties at the current service level, in addition to increasing the service level for the stormwater program. Okay,
I used the wrong word, don't
okay.
shoot me.
All right, well, I won't. I have witnesses. So, the part-time administrative assistants for fire, I'll let him bring something back at the next meeting to explain why he feels he needs this position.
Okay.
Isn't that Rich's job?
Hmm?
I mean, I'm just asking. That's a question you can find out for me. I thought that's your job.
Oh.
Okay. We can put another title on it.
All right.
All right,
So I'm gonna jump to this
Yeah.
policy discussions sheet because there's one item that I want to bring up at this point in time. These are for future discussions, but you may recall that almost every year I've been here, we've tried to privatize leaf and limb because it takes the entire public works staff 3 days of every week, except 2 weeks of every year, to remove leaf and limb. What they're not doing is this. They're not doing the maintenance work. They're
well,
doing.
we didn't have that for them to do. There's
Well,
a
no,
difference.
no, not quite. This right here
Right.
and this right here should have been done every year.
Well-
It wasn't done every year because it wasn't funded, nor did they have any time to do it.
Have you put that out to bid yet?
What,
Leaf and
which? We have,
I know originally
What?
$99,000.
no, we got an idea of a quote
Yeah,
per
it's
household. It's
115,000.
115. It's gone up. It was 112 or 10 last year, so it's gone up a little bit.
And will
Yeah.
you provide updated numbers in terms of, as a comparison of what it would cost for our DPW to do
Yep,
the
just,
same work and stuff like that?
just as we did before, but it won't be the leaf and limb, it'll be this. And then that'll be very easy to demonstrate because we already got, you know, again, these are rough numbers. Until we do put it out to bid, we don't know the number. But again, freeing them up, those 3 days allows them to do this, beach accesses, right away, we are,
So 3 and 4 of the stormwater could come down price-wise if we eliminate leaf and limb.
yes, sir.
If I could, I've been through this
Susan, I
exercise.
had a vision. Can you, everybody hear me?
Yeah, but Bob was talking.
That's right, he didn't hear me.
Oh, I can't.
That's all right, that's all right. I didn't take offense. I didn't take offense.
You mean you agree with me?
No, I didn't go that far. I've been through this exercise before, and,
No,
there are, besides bodies, there are costs associated, or there are cost savings associated with outsourcing some municipal services. For instance, like the issue I was dealing with garbage collection. We were doing an analysis of whether we're going to go to one-armed bandits, the machines that pick up, that takes only one person to operate. The equipment's expensive and it's expensive to maintain, but when you factor in the workman's compensation insurance, the wear and tear on the trucks, the insurance and whatnot, and some of those factors go into outsourcing some of this stuff too. It's not just salaries and bodies.
Correct. So just think about that a little bit more. We'll bring back an
Yeah.
analysis. I think we'll probably just update the analysis we brought you last year and the year before.
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of people, I mean, I think some towns have canceled leaf pickup, is that true?
That is true.
There are some people, I mean, most of the elderly people, other than the mayor, have landscapers. I do, because I can't cut a lawn when it's 110 degrees. And they pick up my stuff.
Yes, sir.
There are people on the street that I live on, every week have bags and bags of stuff, and I wonder, and I ask myself,
sir.
where do they get it? Are they getting it from their cousins in Whiteville? So, you know, I often wondered.
If you drive around on a Sunday morning, you'll see them.
I think Dustin brings them in. No, see, the vision that I had originally was that in order to pay for leaf and limb, that for the time that the public works people could do the landscaping and.
They don't have
But,
time.
I see that's out the window. And the other thing is we're going to have to think about, I mean, should we charge a fee for it? I don't know. I'm just, you know, if it's the same old people every month putting out the same 10 or 20 bags, it's not fair for many of the, especially the island people where there's very little.
This
I
might
mean-
be more of a policy.
You know, it's
discussion
policy.
later
It's a
because-
policy discussion.
Because, you know, some people aren't down here during the winter, or they come down once a month as opposed to every weekend, and We see them all the time because they complain that their bags weren't picked up. So we know who they are.
Yeah,
I mean,
no,
the
no,
majority of people.
I'm just
Well, if I may add a little
like
bit to
hear
that,
myself, Rich.
myself, my neighbors on either side, 2 neighbors across the street, all of them are older than me substantially. 10 years is substantially, except one. And we do all ours, and we have 4 and 5 and 6 bags out there.
Yeah.
Almost every time. So it's, I don't think anybody from these landscape companies are putting stuff out for us to pick up.
No, it's endless, Charlie. I mean, people can fill up 10 bags a day.
That's because things grow here.
They do, and they shed in the spring.
They shed
More
all
than
the
just the spring.
Oh, whatever it is. So the last sheet I wanted to talk to, because I was thinking, you know, in our day-to-day walking or driving around, there are things I've seen that I thought could be an improvement or an added amenity to the community. And so I wrote, yes, sir.
I was looking over stuff myself, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
I will have a question when you're done.
Okay. So this is entitled Potential Future Projects. And these are just some things that as I drive around and I talk to the community and I talk to staff and I talk to visitors, questions I've been asked, are you ever considering this? Are you ever considering that? So I just like to briefly go over them, just ideas.
Susan, did you skip salary and compensation?
Well, I didn't want to do that without Jan being here. Remember, she was going to do this.
Well,
This is just
We will
policy.
need her salary study.
we're not going to make any decisions today. We're just going to somehow
No.
brainstorm or,
Yeah, what I wanted to do today was just to
because
point out,
that's policy.
that's policy.
And
this-
compensation is also policy.
And we'll bring this back to the council when you have a full council and we have more numbers, because I know Jan was doing something.
Yeah, well, there's something else I'd like to review about compensation. And I don't know how much the medical insurance is going to go up. I don't know how much the dental insurance is going to go up, or the cost of any other benefits. Now, I'm not suggesting in any way, so don't get anybody, I don't want to give anybody any anxiety. We have a very generous benefit program. People in government have this is just philosophical, have a very generous program. Most of it is basically free. We provide the best benefit program probably in the region. Government does. My concern is the future growth of those medical and dental costs for the programs. What I'm thinking in my little head, and I haven't discussed this with anybody on the council, is for the town, for anybody hired on or before, hired on or after, let's say July 1st, I'd like to have the town submit what they feel. So this would only impact new hires, not current employees. I would like, because medical insurance is going to increase, dental insurance is going to increase, and I would like to have something in place so that when new employees are hired, we're going to have a 2-tier benefit system maybe. I'm just thinking out loud, that current employees, nothing is taken back, no givebacks. New employees will know that they may have to pay additional for medical or like.
What,
Well,
I
Rich,
think,
Rich, what you're saying is maybe of concern. I think you're making some assumptions that may or may not be true. I can't answer that. I can't address
it's,
that.
Bob,
But
it's
what-
just,
This is one of the things that Jan, she's not just doing a salary study, she's doing a salary and benefit study that would include, that would draw some conclusions. We're way overboard here, or we're not enough here. And then we can make decisions based on what that report is. That's what the intention of that report is.
Yeah, one of my concerns, Bob, is that, to me, some employees seem to have a living wage issue. Or, yeah, I'll call it a living wage. We have about 6 or 7 employees, I believe, are making less than maybe $32,000 a year. 6 or 7 or 8.
Susan?
No,
If I may, I don't want to go too much into this because I don't want any misinformation out there. I'm not saying you're wrong. I just don't want to discuss this right now. We'll come back with a study. We'll give you the information
All right.
that you need further. And I think when you look at benefits and compensation and salary, you also have to think of your ability to not only to attract employees.
You have to recruit
qualified.
people at the same time, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Retain
it's-
them,
Yes.
yes.
Retain and attract,
Wow.
and quality employees, like here.
The past 2 years, the same thing has come up
Well, see-
during budget hearings. And in an attempt to lower taxes, you haven't been able to do that. And I'm not saying go crazy and up the taxes, but part of this salary, part of this benefits package goes with the lower salaries. If you take away the benefits or part of the retirement, you're not going to keep some of these police officers, firefighters, public work guys, they're going to go and make somewhere else if they're make more somewhere else if they
Kelly,
don't.
we haven't had any problems recruiting firefighters. Kevin just hired 3.
Are we
All right, let's
getting the
not-
top
I don't want to
quality?
get in that debate.
Let's not debate it now. There will be a debate about it, but not right now.
I thought it was being debated.
No, it's not, we're trying to stop it
I
from
was
being
trying to
debated.
stop. So one last sheet.
Hurry.
So as I was mentioning that I've talked to people, visitors, residents, staff, and these are just some things that are brought up. And we're always looking for things that will enhance or improve our quality of life here in Sunset Beach. Now with the town park, the medians there, is everyone familiar with what I'm speaking of? I've been looking at those for a while. Initially, during the initial park planning, they were going to remove those to add additional parking. And I think I'm going to take a look at it and see if that's even a possibility. Of course, I'm not going to do it.
I think they're an eyesore. They're an eyesore.
Public Works land acquisition. If you've ever been down to the Public Works yard when all the equipment is parked there and all the piles of rock and wood, and it not only is it, no offense, Dustin, unsightly as you drive over the bridge and back over the bridge from the island, but it's not large enough for him to do his job, him and his staff. And that too. Thank you. So on, he's the hardest one.
Are there areas identified potentially for future land acquisition?
That's why there's no number here.
Okay. That's a no?
No, that's not a note. I'm just not going to put the number out here that I'm willing to pay.
I didn't want a number, I just wanted, are there places in Sunset Beach
Yes,
that we could use?
yes.
Dolores, South Carolina.
Close enough?
You might have noticed this winter the restroom trailers have been off quite a bit off the island because of repairs. Those are how many years old, Dustin?
Yeah, those are about 8 years old.
They're about 6 years old.
yeah.
They're high maintenance items. They are continuously in disrepair. Now, those were purchased before the water and stormwater system was put in place. I think that we could put a permanent public restroom on the Main Street side. I don't know about the beach dune side, but I'm fairly certain on that corner there we could build a permanent restroom.
Is there a sewer line that goes into the pier?
Can't hear you.
Is there a sewer line that goes into the pier?
I don't believe so. I don't know. I know
So-
they don't have restrooms.
So he's still on, yeah, he does.
No,
Back
he says
under the pier.
restrooms go that, he has a sign that goes restrooms that way. Just letting you know.
Unless you close it down, they're in the back of the pier.
I have no idea,
Yeah.
but again, this is just, when we're looking at the useful life of this trailer, you know, I'd hate to spend how much money? Well, probably more than that now, because that was 6 years ago, on something that's gonna break, as opposed to something similar to what we have in the town park. Of course, it'd have to be elevated, that has a useful life of 50 years. I was just, 50 years. Okay. I just thought it was a better investment, more effective use of money. The West End, we have been talking about this for a while. Depends which public safety department you ask about it. But when we have calls, because we do go down to the jetty and Bird Island, we have to enter at the gazebo parking lot. We could probably increase our response time or even stage the ambulances closer to the West End access point. Where that is, what it is, I don't know. But it's something we've been thinking about. I've put it on the side burner for a while until we had the settlement or the agreement with the West End, because they were going to provide us an emergency access for our public safety. Now that that's off the table, we have to rethink that plan. The gazebo parking lot, the flowery, oh, actually the rock area
Yeah,
with the flowers.
we're gonna drill there.
No, I've been looking, you know, we've been looking at different other communities that have rain gardens there, or, you know, instead of having rock, we might be able to use it as a demonstration project for rain gardens or other water infiltration plants and projects. I could see that as another education area for us, especially for the island. The multimodal path in front of Outfitters, I mean, that was put on hold because of the electric, you know, those green boxes that feed the island.
Right.
The property owner has not taken any initiative to develop that property, in which case he would move that, put in a change lane, and assist us in extending the multimodal. So I just want to let you guys know I haven't forgotten about it. I'm just waiting for opportunity. And it hasn't presented itself yet.
I have a question for Amber's List.
Yes.
The cost of the permanent restrooms compared with the cost and 5 years maintenance for the portable ones, can we get a comparison on that?
Yeah. The one thing that, it's not only just the maintenance aspect of it. If you've ever been in those restrooms during the heat of the summer,
The ambiance is not of the best.
Does it smell like roses?
Susan,
Oh, go ahead, Rich.
Jan is not here, unfortunately, but during her campaign, she mentioned that she wanted to have parking for Sunset Beach residents. From what I heard, she has been going around to find out if people on the island who have parking areas could lease a portion maybe of their land, first come, first serve, for Sunset Beach residents. Now, when you do that, when you lease, it's going to cost money. I don't know where she is on it. I just bring it up just so that people can think about it, and because that's always been an issue. Parking has always been an issue on
right.
the beach.
Well,
Now,
I can't.
there are some lots that are empty all the time.
Right.
Yeah, Rich, but if you own the house next door, you don't want a parking lot next door to your house.
And not only
No,
that, we would
I'm
not.
talking about the parking lots that are there, the current ones,
The ones by the pier? By the pier?
across from the pier
Okay.
and in front of the Continental Hotel.
We don't
The
own
same
that
person, the same person is responsible for the parking,
property. Right,
that's all.
okay.
Amber, if you could just add that. I have an answer to it, but I'm going to bring it back on that one.
The only thing I'm asking about, I'm in the business Why aren't we switching these buildings over to LED?
We are as needed, as we move forward. If you want a full, I mean, I don't think it's economical to do a full replacement all at once, unless you want to spend the money to do that. But as bulbs go out, you'll notice in the restrooms and stuff, we've been replacing with LED.
The survey I did in this building and 2 firehouses is net neutral. There's nothing out of pocket.
I have not seen that.
Oh, I don't give it to you because of conflict of interest, but David came out and gave you an estimate. He
No,
has
he
not got
didn't.
back to you.
He did not.
He has
yet.
not got back to me. I
Right.
talked to him today about it.
Susan, the only other question I have, other than,
LED.
is what expense reductions can the staff make to help offset these costs?
Well, that is a good question, and we'll bring that back to you. As you may or may not know, the cost of doing business has not gone down, so
No, I just,
it may be a service level question that we're going to give you. Maybe we don't do this or we don't do that, but I have to tell you, this community does have a high expectation of service levels. And, you know, I think we are fairly efficient and effective in the work that we do with what we have. And, you know, gas isn't going down, utilities isn't
Yeah.
going down,
I mean, when you,
health insurance isn't going
Utilities
down.
could go down.
What I,
Perhaps in the course of working out some of these costs,
Mm-hmm.
as comparisons, the, new items is making sure we have, I think you did some of this last year, some of the current annual maintenance cost and projected maintenance cost.
We'll do that.
If we keep an old piece of equipment versus replacing an old piece of equipment.
Yeah, and the other element to that is safety, employee safety. It gets to the point where it may be running and it may only have 100,000 miles on it, but it's not safe to drive and doesn't meet the current standards, and we do have some of that.
Yeah, police cars shouldn't be doing 140 miles an hour or 5 years old.
one of the things I just speak to the council on, particularly on the potential future projects. I don't mean right now in the next 5 minutes, but that's an area, if you got an idea that you think ought to be, would be a good idea for the town in this whole planning process, don't hesitate to bring it up.
Yeah, that was just the jump starter to get you thinking about it. And these are things that I've been observing over, I'm sorry, I did interrupt you, Mayor, I
No, that's all right.
apologize.
I noticed that.
Is that's something that in the emails until our next meeting, if you want to send me something individually, we can incorporate it, because what we will do after this meeting is type this all up so you have that in front of you, so, and then we'll add it to the questions and
But
the
Susan,
answers.
I'd like to see the staff do it also.
Staff do.
The staff come back to us and say, well, I think we can save money here if we do this.
Oh, no, the saving money part, I was referring
Okay.
to the project list.
Okay.
Because
Can we
that's,
give you a project now?
sure,
Okay, one thing to think about, when we heard the presentation about the concert series, possibly moving to a different location, is the idea, can we build or put together or get a removable bandstand type of area?
yes,
That we could use in different locations, the park or other places, for different types of events?
that's absolutely something you can do. I've done it in the past. What we can do is get a price for you to bring it back to the council.
Like a portable bandstand, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
with lighting and everything.
Susan, are you going to leave this on the board?
I am for a while, but I'm also going to have it typed up for you.
Oh, okay.
Lisa's
Okay?
doing that, right?
Susan, one last thing.
Yes, sir.
Like this, the backhoe or the truck for Public Works, one or two
Yes.
there.
Yes.
Are those solid numbers?
Those are fairly close. This one may go up a little bit because of a trailer lift thing. Are you still going to do that? We're waiting on some numbers. None of these numbers are solid yet. I don't feel comfortable
Your
saying that.
guesstimates, we understand.
We have some good ideas, but it's not all of them. So the next thing I'd like to do, unless you have any more questions about these items or if you want to add anything, is that for the next planning session, I think we've outlined pretty much what you want to see back from us. Is that correct? Correct? Okay. And that next meeting is April 17th. So in that interim, if you have any of those special projects you want us to look at or add to the list, or if you've any additional questions on these items, and we'll get that to you before the end of the week. Let's see, is there anything else? Because normally I was going to do all the questions here, but I think we captured all of them unless we missed something. Well, I think this went very well.
And if council's got any question about anything we've talked about, bring it up so that we don't have to deal with it later
No, I
on.
think we made our request clear.
I think so too.
Susan, this was very well prepared. Thank you.
You're more than welcome. And it's really these guys that did all the work. I was just the colorer.
That's important.
The only thing I'd like to add, the only thing that I'd like to add is a consensus, and I don't know how you get it, or I don't know how the department heads get it. I'm sure they hear it every day. What do our employees want? They want higher take-home pay.
Oh, that's the question.
Everybody does.
Ask that too.
And this is what I was concerned about, the living wage. For example, we have a 401k policy that subsidizes up to $6,000. Lisa's getting some information on that for me. That seems to be regressive, and I've said this ever since I've been a public official, so it's nothing new. It seems to be regressive because the higher paid employees can easily or more easily contribute than a person making $31,000 or $32,000. And I just find that morally, I find that unfair. And I'm not a socialist.
Well, we can.
I'm a pure capitalist.
We're going to take a look at, again, compensation, salary, and benefits are all going to be reviewed.
Lisa's getting some data for me,
Right.
and I think that's what it'll indicate.
Well, what I'd like, and I know she's getting that information for you, but what I'd like to really do is get all the information together in one report. That way you don't have sheets from different people and you're trying to juxtapose one with another.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right.
Thank you, Susan.
That it?
Thank you, staff.
That it?
That's it. That's all I have. That's the
Okay.
dog and pony for today.
All
All
right.
right, thank you,
I have a
everybody.
motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?